thanks again for joining us on It Starts With Plastic Free. Corey and Phil back with you again. Corey, how are we doing?
Oh, I'm good. Phil, yourself?
Good, mate. Oh, this is, well, I'm going to let you introduce this episode today. But it's one that's passionate for both of us.
It is.
We're going to cover microplastics, but let us know a bit more about microplastics.
Well, I will say it's an area of steep learning, this topic, microplastics. And one thing we are going to do, because we're going to talk about this a bit, but we are going to bring in an expert on this shortly.
Definitely.
Because I think we're out of our field here in terms of the papers.
We've
read plenty of papers and the likes, but we do need an expert on this one because it's a real evolving area of knowledge and new information out there. So just today we want to cover what are microplastics. We want to cover what the current research out there, of which there's not a whole lot, on what do they do to your health. And then thirdly, ways to reduce microplastics in your home and your life. And I think, we'll touch on the research, but I think we know microplastics are not going to be good for us as the research evolves. So we want to understand how we're going to reduce these.
And we don't normally drink from a bottle like this, but we're just an example that we're going to bring up later about plastic bottles and PET and how that is potentially an issue out there. So recently, Corey, I actually met with an environmental engineer that works with OSMAP, and their link is there now. These guys do some great work, and they basically are searching microplastic pollution along Australian beaches. They started in Sydney, but they've now branched out, and we've got one here in Adelaide. And OSMAP are doing some great work, and Anna shared this paper with me, who's based here in Adelaide, and it was really, for me, it was, I couldn't stop reading it over and over because I thought I knew about microplastics because of my previous business with chemicals and plastic materials. And microplastics now, they were saying that anything sort of less than 5 millimeters, they divide it up into what they call a primary or a secondary microplastic.
Yep.
And the primary microplastics are things that we find in face washes, toothpaste, cosmetics. Like, it's frightening to think of the stuff we put in our bodies all the time, and cleaning products. But the secondary group is what is actually broken down from large plastics, and there's things like the small fragments, things from plastic films and soft plastics, bottles, microfibers, and which you know about a bit from some hospital game, and rubber particles, tiny rubber particles, even on car tyres, etc. So where are the microplastics mainly found? And the issues are that they end up in aquatic streams and marine environments and ecosystems, seawater, freshwater, rainwater systems, river sediments, in sands. Like some of the photos Anna showed me of the microplastics that they were analysing on beach sand, and their trained eye to see this is not some sort of nice colour kids picking up making sand castles, and there was actually microplastics in there. Frightening.
Even on my local beach, if I go for a walk in the morning, if you start paying attention, it's starting to look more and more multicoloured.
You're aware of it
when you get into the sand.
But the problem is, it's this stuff, the clear stuff that you don't see. And it goes unnoticed. And that's when I saw some of the figures which we'll talk about marine shellfish and fish life. This is where it's sort of heading. So that was really interesting with what they had. And the other thing that really was disappointing at the moment, there is no environmental authority regulating microplastics in Australia. But in Australia, we're a country full of beaches. We really should have a regulator that's starting to clamp down on this. Now, we've got these great days where people are picking up litter from beaches and rivers, streams, etc. But you just can't collect microplastics by hand. So, the thing is understanding how they're formed and then how we avoid them. Like I always say, I love reading blogs, and National Geographic's one of mine that I follow. And there was a really great article that came out in September, and you can go online and read this, but it talks about microplastics in our bodies and how much they harm us. Without going into too much detail, it was an 18-page blog. It was quite informative, but one of the interesting things they spoke about was the fact that microplastics are found in humans, they're found in animal sources now, in soils, everything, even where we've got organic land, where we're talking about organic foods and sort of regenerative grazing, etc.
Yep.
There's still this chance of microplastics in soils, and we're thinking we're eating good quality grass-fed meats, but they could be impacted by microplastics.
Yes. Well, you go back to where do a lot of them come from? Off car tyres is a huge contributor of
massive
microplastics. So the car's driving down the road and
I got to ask
and
you,
it blows.
As two entrepreneurs, but why someone hasn't invented a car tyre that doesn't let off?
Phil, don't give that idea away.
Our next business. All right. Anyway, however, microplastics with humans. The thing that this paper ends with, which it's a good read and it's a simple one. But the issue is that you've got data, lab data, that shows that it does impact human cells.
Yeah.
But there's no epidemiological studies at the moment stating that it's bad for humans. However, reading between the lines, they sort of use the analogy that when cigarette smoke was first tracked, and cigarettes were bad for you, it took 40 years for people to make the admission that it was causing cancer, and by that stage, the horse had bolted.
Yes.
And we've now got, they're sort of saying that this is going to be the next issue in the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
Health issues, emphysema, lung problems, respiratory issues. And if we don't start being aware of it now, how we eliminate it, because what's out there is out there, but how do we eliminate the continuous, because we're talking about billions of microplastic films or particles out in small landfills.
Yeah, the studies I read, they suggested humans were consuming either dozens up to 100,000 microplastic pieces a day. So
no one's going to go and eat a piece of soft plastic, but that's exactly what
some are as fine as a human hair.
Yeah, and that's the particles.
They're not visible to the eye. Yeah.
So maybe let's go into where they are in everyday life and how we can avoid them. One of the things that I've become more conscious of recently is things of clothing materials and what clothes are made of. And now, there are some things that are unavoidable to have using organic fabrics, etc. But are they things you need to wash all the time? But they talked about buying materials that are made from, buying clothing made from organic materials. So hemp is now very popular out there. Things that are made of cotton, wool, silk as well, and natural fibres, because when those natural fibres break down, they don't create microplastics. Yep. And the other data was really interesting about that, was that when those particles do break down, they tend to ball, they're heavier than a lot of the microplastic films, so they don't find themselves sort of airborne as much as what you've got with microplastics. So, avoiding clothes that are going to be used for everyday use that you're washing all the time that are polyester, polypropylene based, we talk about all the time, because that synthetic material is going to create microplastics.
Yep.
When I was a kid, the Bonds t-shirts were always cotton.
Yeah.
Using a cotton t-shirt. Why can't we go back to that?
Yeah.
I think of all the sports lycra and all the outfits now. Are we needing to go back? Instead of actually going to sort of all these synthetic materials. But clothing's a major one that creates microplastics every day.
And there's the washing associated with that as well.
Well, the washing, that blew me away, and I know we all like clean clothes, etc. But, the thing is, it's from washing and drying that we are creating these particles.
Yep.
It's unavoidable. And if you've got, again, polyesters and synthetic materials in your clothing, that is ended up in waterways and it just ends up in the ocean. And so dryers, apparently, generate 40 times more microfibers than washing machines. So can you just naturally let it air dry out there instead of trying to rush it and put it in that dryer? In fact, I'm going to go home tonight and probably get rid of that dryer.
These are really scary stats. Let's go back to that. If microplastics are the new smoking.
Yep.
Stuff like that suggests that who is going to have a dryer in their house?
And a lot more people are doing this than actually smoking.
Yeah.
But the thing was, how you reduce microplastics with wash and dry. So, some of the simple things were talking about quality filters that catch microplastics, which is a real easy one, really, when you think about that. We talked about air drying, using less water every load. So don't have these loads with huge amounts of water.
Yes.
So those delicate washers, they use
a lot more
tons of water, and so you might be doing that once a week with a delicate wash,
Yeah.
where that you're using 2 or 3 times the amount of water, and that tends to And those materials sometimes are the ones that are creating the microplastics.
Washing your clothes less often, that's something my teenage boys are really good at, is not washing their clothes very often. So they're ticking that box.
We know about avoiding single-use plastics, as much as possible. And we know there are some things that are unavoidable in certain environments. However, things like that, like there's a PET plastic bottle. Can we avoid plastic? Like, what's wrong with pushing the industry to go back to glass? Or where you've got your bottle, having your refillable and taking it to the tap.
Refillables,
The big one. Plastic-free cosmetics. We spoke about cosmetics before. When you're going to buy things that are cosmetics, things like abbreviations. If it's got PE on there, that's polyethylene. If it's got PP on there, it's polypropylene. If it's got PET, these are all plastic materials that are meant to be listed in the ingredients. Check that out. If you see them, there's microbeads in them. Avoid it. Now, you might think, I'm putting on my face, putting on my skin, it's a low risk, but when you wash, that is washed out, and where do these things end up? In the waterways. So...
And it's, again, like, we have so many... This is just about awareness. There's so many well-intentioned people out there that come to the local cafe with their reusable straw out of their handbag, and then they put on some makeup, and lo and behold, it's got plastic in it.
And it's just awareness. It's awareness, exactly right. You don't know what you don't know, but if you start to educate, which is what this program's about, just to create that awareness and know where these risks lie. Now, you and I are seafood lovers, and this one was really scary when we talked about shellfish.
Shellfish consumption is apparently quite a risk when it comes to microplastics. And again, if you think about the typical shellfish animal is feeding off the bottom of the ocean.
And that's where the microplastics sink.
That's where the microplastics are.
Reducing shellfish consumption would avoid the microplastic ingestion, but it's not avoiding the microplastic problem. We're going to reduce microplastics, get into those ocean streams. But where you buy your product from is really important, because if it's in a heavy populated area near cities, then chances are there's more microplastics on the floors of those oceans. Transport. I was reading a really good article the other day about Amsterdam. How decades ago it was a major, like, people who go to Amsterdam now will see a whole lot of people riding bikes. But decades ago, it was just a filthy city full of cars and traffic jams, and it was all about town planners and how governments made that change. You talked about car tyres before. But this is where, I suppose this is a shout out to certain councils and governments, local, state and federal, where we make zones that are car free. And you just avoid all certain times of the week or weekends where there are no vehicles, encouraging walking, scooters, bikes, rollerblades, whatever it might be. But if car tyres and the technology is not there to avoid that, then that's car tyres near near beachways. Where's all that end up?
28% of all microplastics found in the ocean come from car tyres.
28%. You're the stat man, so I'm not going to doubt that.
Amazing.
That's frightening. But the other one, which I see often, even with staff in our staff room, sometimes is the microwave. And not that I'm against heating up the food if you think it's okay, but even where you are heating up food and it says that the plastic is microwave safe, it is leaching chemicals back into the food. And this is the one that I suppose really blew me away, was the impact of cleaning.
I'd never thought about this.
So,
recently, reading this stuff.
One of that article about microplastics in the bodies, they were saying that even if you were eating seafood that had, they were talking about mussels, that you eat mussels that have been exposed to where there's microplastics in the bottom of the ocean, you would, during eating those mussels in a normal household, you'll ingest more microplastics from the atmosphere than eating the mussels, because there's just in the home all the time carpets, all the microfibers, the polyester fibers from clothing, from floor surfaces, images of wall paintings or rugs or couches or whatever that could be. And so vacuuming important, obviously, and keeping things clean. But if you are in the building or the renovating space, is this the time to go away from sort of materials that might be polyester based and go with hardwoods or ceramic tiles or materials that sort of are natural and not going to create those microfibers just in cleaning or general.
Yes.
You know, I think it's all invisible to us. You know, we're probably got them floating around here at the moment, but you know, being aware of what could be creating them is an issue. You know, and this is where the opportunities are too for people out there in terms of what could you develop to avoid microplastics in the home.
Yep.
Anything else, Corey, you wanted to?
You know, and just taking a step back, if we start eliminating plastic production or reducing our use, especially of single patient use plastics, single use plastics. Sorry, that's my medical background coming out there. You know, we start reducing the microplastics.
You know, when you're buying things like, you know, your sheets, your pillowcases, all those sorts of things, like what are they made of? Check it out.
Yeah, and I'll just leave you with a little interesting statement. Even if all plastic production were magically stopped tomorrow, existing plastic in landfills and the environment, a mass estimated at around 5 billion tonnes, would continue degrading into tiny fragments that are impossible to collect or clean up, constantly raising the microplastic numbers. So microplastic will just keep increasing because there is so much plastic out there already. Our challenge is to try and reduce the microplastic in our lives and reduce the single-use plastics by not adding to it.
Well, that statistics of 5 billion tonne, I can't even picture what that is. But how do we change communities in terms of, there's one thing for behaviour, but our future generations stuck with all the sins of the past, or does it sort of dissipate? Anyone who's got any comments about microplastics, please throw them our way. Don't forget to share this if you enjoyed it. Give us a comment, a like, and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, it starts with Plastic Free. We'll see you then.